Thanks, Dan, and thank you all. Before I get started, I'd like to thank Hort Innovation and the Raspberry and Blackberry Fund and Nuffield Australia and also Costa for making this opportunity available to me. I would also like to acknowledge all the people that assisted me along the way, my colleagues that stepped up to make it an opportunity for me, and to all the farmers and advisors and people I spoke to who shared their perspective and opened up their farms to me. So who am I? Following on from Dan's intro, I am a horticulturist based in Tasmania. I look after 85 hectares of raspberries, and in that I am responsible for all things growing. We put out about 1,700 tonne of raspberries per annum. The berry industry in Australia started in the 1800s. It was largely focused around jam production. It wasn't until around the 1950s where fresh market production really started to take off, and that was with strawberries in Victoria. It wasn't until the 1980s we started to see blueberries, raspberries and blackberries start to become a bit popular in the market. Over time we started to grow and the market started to grow, but there was a challenge with being soft fruit and getting consistent quality to the market. So we started to see changes with growing practices and techniques, new genetics coming into practice, and you can see we moved out of soil production into, if you look to the bottom picture, is in protected tunnel environments. With this change, we were able to supply a much more consistent quality of fruit through the market, and from then on, the market really started to take off. So what we're seeing here is that people got a taste for raspberries and blackberries. This is just from raspberries and blackberries, but the consumption between 2013 and 2023, as Australians started to love berries, and on the left-hand side you can see the volume produced by Australian growers grew from around 2,000 tonnes to in excess of 10,000 tonnes. So it's a 500% increase in about 10 years. You can also see the red line where the price we were selling our fruit to the market for started to retract from around the $34 a kilo back down around $20 a kilo. So in the 2020s we had the similar challenges to everyone in the room here, where the cost of production went through the roof with inflation and labour prices. Earlier I showed you that we'd moved into protected cropping, so we had tunnels, but we've also moved out of the soil and into potted systems that you can see in the middle there. We're using more products than ever to grow berries, and now we're at a point where we're starting to consolidate. We really need to start to consider the sustainability of our industry going forward. So we have noted that we're getting new pests enter our system, and pests that we're used to managing, their life cycle's changing. We've also got materials that we don't necessarily have reliable end-of-life solutions for. So hence my topic, what does sustainability look like for us? In my travels, I wanted to focus on mature growing regions, so I went to the UK, Europe and US. On a big picture level, what did I learn? I learned that from a farmer level, growing sustainably is influenced by profitability, policy and market access. So in terms of profitability, when you're operating in a market with smaller margins, we have to be every decision that we make has to be focused around profitability. Market access, this was largely the supply chain. The supply chain had a huge influence on what was happening on farms. This wasn't necessarily from the end consumer. The market research indicates that while they expect us to be sustainable and to grow as sustainably as possible, they weren't necessarily willing to pay more. It was more coming from the retailer, who had their own pressures either through mandatory reporting or from their stakeholders and what they need to do to be sustainable, and that was impacting the grower. So what can we learn is to have very strong relationships with your supply chain, and particularly when it comes to what your sustainability goals are, because they will change throughout Australia as to what that needs to be. Policy was huge, particularly in Europe. I think in Australia overall, for the berry industry, it won't be the key driver for us in growing sustainably. It will be involved, but not the major. On farm level. So the berry industry is very good at using integrated pest management, but the next step is really, you saw that we're in a very stark environment now compared to what we may have been historically. So I wanted to understand how people are using managed biodiversity in their systems. I found that people were using native strips or hedgerows, but that was mainly through funding, through subsidies or grant programs. When I was talking to growers, however, there didn't seem to be a lot of understanding about the interaction with their growing system. So I think for Australian growers, we need to be clear about what our objectives are, and have management tools to understand how that is interacting with our system as to whether that is working for us or against us. So crop management, I found everyone is chasing profitability, and to do that, we're doing that in many different ways. I found that there were growers changing their system, reducing their canopies, planting densities, things like that, really focusing on the drivers of profitability, so pick rates and things like that. They had unintended consequences by relieving some of the pressure in their system. So they were relying less on pesticides and things like that. On the left-hand side, you can see a picture of a bumblebee box. Everywhere I went, everybody was using bumblebees and honeybees as their managed pollinator services. In Australia, we only have really the European honeybee, and it's important for us to continue to support alternative pollinator research, and also continue to build an understanding of the role of native pollinators in our systems. Irrigation, water nutrient management. While we do already use some tools for irrigation and nutrient management, in the UK I found that they were going to the next level. So they had sensor technology which was able to see what the water use of their crop was in real time, right throughout the growing day. This was helping them to make better informed decisions about how to manage their crop, and they were able to get better crop outcomes, but also reduce the amount of water and nutrient waste to the environment. Waste. So what you're looking at here is old coir and plant crop mulched up. Huge problem at the moment. When I was overseas, I found overwhelmingly that solutions for waste were local. Growers were putting this into any energy production, into biodigesters. They were putting it as a resource into farm cropping situations to improve their soil organic matter. People were doing a lot of different things, but the overall outcome was that it was local. So 10 minutes is not a lot of time to cover what I've found in my experience. So please read my report when it's published, or come and find me, or visit me in Tasmania. Again, thank you to Hort Innovation and to Nuffield and to Costa for allowing me this opportunity. So thank you.